Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever opened your phone, scrolled for 5 minutes, and suddenly felt 10 years behind in life? Someone is earning more, someone got married, someone bought a car. Someone looks happier, fitter, more successful, and without realizing it, your peaceful morning turns into silent pressure. Today, I want to say something simple, but powerful. I don't care who is doing better than me. Not because I've given up, but because I've finally understood where peace lives. This is not a speech about lowering ambition. This is a speech about raising clarity. Most of us wake up every morning carrying a quiet burden we rarely talk about. It doesn't show on our faces, but it sits somewhere deep inside the chest, a constant feeling that we are behind. Behind in career, behind in money, behind in life. No one told us explicitly to feel this way, yet the pressure is always there. It comes from conversations at family gatherings, from casual questions asked with hidden judgment, and most strongly, from the endless images we consume every day. We scroll through our phones and unknowingly step onto a racetrack. Someone has already reached a milestone. Someone else is celebrating a win. Another person seems to have everything figured out. Slowly, without signing any form or giving any consent, we start running. Running to match timelines that were never designed for us. Running to meet expectations that were never discussed with our own hearts. What makes this race exhausting is that there are no clear rules. No finish line is defined. No one tells us when we are enough. The goalpost keeps moving. Today it is a job, tomorrow it is a better job. Today it is stability, tomorrow it is luxury. Even when we achieve something, the satisfaction lasts only for a moment before comparison pulls us back into the race again. The real problem is not ambition. Wanting to grow is natural. Wanting to improve is healthy. The problem begins when growth turns into anxiety and ambition turns into insecurity. When we stop asking ourselves what we truly want and start asking what will look impressive to others, we lose direction. At that point, effort feels heavy because it is no longer rooted in purpose. Imagine traveling without knowing your destination. Every road will confuse you. Every passing vehicle will make you feel slow. Every stop will feel like a delay. This is exactly what happens in life when we don't define success for ourselves. We let society define it, and society is never satisfied. It always wants more, faster, louder. Some people are running toward money, some toward recognition, some toward approval, but most don't pause to ask whether the race even matches their nature. A calm person is forcing themselves to chase noise. A creative soul is stuck measuring life in numbers. A deep thinker is comparing themselves to someone who thrives on speed. The mismatch creates frustration, not failure. The invisible race drains energy silently. You may be doing well, but it never feels enough because someone else appears to be doing better. You may be progressing steadily, but it feels slow because someone else took shortcuts or started earlier. Over time, joy disappears and effort turns mechanical. Life becomes about catching up rather than living fully. The moment clarity enters, the race begins to lose its grip. When you know why you're walking a certain path, the noise from other paths fades. You stop reacting to every success story. You stop feeling threatened by someone else's pace. You start conserving energy for what truly matters to you. Freedom begins when you realize you were never late. You were just walking your own road while watching others sprint on different ones. Comparison rarely arrives loudly. It doesn't announce itself or warn you before entering your mind. It slips in quietly, often disguised as motivation or self-improvement. You tell yourself you are only observing, only learning, only staying aware, But slowly, observation turns into judgment, and judgment turns inward. Without realizing it, you start questioning your own worth. You see someone's achievement and immediately measure it against your own life. Not just the achievement, but the timing, the recognition, the applause. You begin to wonder why their journey seems smoother, faster, more celebrated. In that moment, comparison does not inspire growth. It creates doubt, and doubt, when repeated daily, becomes a belief. The dangerous part is that comparison is selective. We compare our struggles with someone else's success, our unfinished chapters with their polished moments. We never compare fairly. We don't see their fears, failures, sleepless nights, or silent sacrifices. We only see outcomes, and we assume those outcomes define happiness. This assumption quietly steals contentment. Comparison also distorts reality. It makes progress feel like stagnation and effort feel pointless. Even when you are moving forward, you feel stuck because someone else is moving faster. Even when you improve, it feels insufficient because someone else improved more. Over time, this creates a constant emotional imbalance, a feeling that something is missing, even when life is objectively fine. What makes comparison especially harmful is how it disguises itself as concern. It tells you that you are being realistic, that you are simply aware of competition, that pressure is necessary to succeed. But pressure without direction only leads to exhaustion. Growth fueled by insecurity never feels fulfilling, no matter how far it goes. The mind, under comparison, becomes restless. It jumps from one benchmark to another, never settling. Satisfaction becomes temporary, and peace feels undeserved. You stop celebrating your own milestones because they no longer feel impressive. Joy gets postponed to a future that keeps moving away. Another silent damage of comparison is how it creates resentment. You may not openly dislike others, but somewhere inside, their success starts to irritate you. This irritation is not because they did something wrong, but because their growth reminds you of the expectations you placed on yourself. The heart becomes heavy, not due to failure, but due to constant self-criticism. When comparison becomes a habit, self-trust weakens. You stop listening to your inner voice and start seeking validation outside. Decisions are no longer guided by what feels right, but by what looks better. Slowly, life turns into performance rather than experience. The truth is, comparison does not elevate standards. It erodes confidence. It doesn't push you forward. It pulls you apart. The moment you recognize this pattern, something shifts. You begin to see that peace was never absent. It was just being overshadowed. And when comparison loosens its grip, clarity has space to return. From the time we are young, we are taught to believe that life follows a fixed schedule. Study by a certain age, settle by a certain age, succeed by a certain age. This invisible timeline gets reinforced through conversations, expectations, and constant examples around us. When our life doesn't match that timeline, we assume something has gone wrong. But the truth is far simpler and far kinder. Life was never meant to unfold in one standard pattern. Every human being carries a different rhythm. Some discover their direction early, while others wander for years before clarity arrives. Some experience success quickly but struggle with depth, while others struggle for long periods and later experience fulfillment that lasts. These differences are not mistakes, they are design. Nature itself operates this way. Not all flowers bloom in the same season, yet none are late. When you look closely, you realize that timing is deeply personal. Two people can work equally hard and still see results at different moments. This doesn't mean one is more deserving than the other. It simply means their journeys require different lessons before the next chapter opens. Growth is not just about outcomes, it is also about readiness. Many people rush because they fear being left behind. They feel pressure not because they lack ability, but because they are constantly watching others move ahead. This pressure often leads to decisions made out of fear rather than wisdom. When actions are driven by panic, life becomes unstable. When actions are guided by patience, life becomes grounded. There is a quiet strength in trusting your own pace. It allows you to learn deeply rather than superficially. It allows experiences to shape you fully instead of being rushed through. People who grow slowly often develop resilience, clarity, and emotional maturity, qualities that cannot be borrowed or fast-tracked. What appears as delay is often preparation. Life sometimes holds you back not to punish you, but to protect you. Certain responsibilities require emotional strength. Certain successes require inner balance. If they arrive before you are ready, they become burdens instead of blessings. When you accept that everyone has a different clock, envy begins to fade. You stop questioning your worth based on someone else's timeline. You stop seeing your present as a problem. Instead, you begin to see it as a phase that is teaching you something essential. The moment you stop fighting time and start cooperating with it, life feels lighter. You no longer wake up feeling late. You wake up feeling aligned, and alignment, more than speed, is what carries a person forward with peace. Many people believe that once they reach a certain level of success, peace will automatically follow. They assume that more money, more recognition, or a higher position will finally quiet the mind. But in reality, peace does not arrive as a bonus with achievement. In fact, there are countless people who appear successful on the outside while fighting constant unrest on the inside. When success is built only on external validation, it becomes fragile. It depends on numbers, applause, and comparisons. The moment those numbers drop or the applause fades, anxiety takes over. What was meant to feel like victory begins to feel like pressure. Maintaining an image becomes more exhausting than building a life. There are people who earn well but sleep poorly. Their minds are always calculating, worrying, planning the next move. Rest feels unproductive. Silence feels uncomfortable. Even moments meant for joy are overshadowed by thoughts of what could be lost. This is the hidden cost of success that is not supported by inner stability. Peace is not the absence of effort, it is the presence of balance. When ambition is disconnected from well-being, it slowly turns toxic. You start sacrificing health, relationships, and self-respect for outcomes that never fully satisfy. Over time, the body keeps moving, but the heart grows tired. True fulfillment comes when success aligns with values. When what you do externally does not contradict who you are internally, life feels lighter. You no longer feel the need to constantly defend your choices or prove your worth. Confidence becomes quiet, not loud. There is also a misconception that slowing down means falling behind. In reality, slowing down often prevents breakdown. People who pause to reflect, rest, and realign are not weak. They are wise. They understand that burning out is not a badge of honor, and constant stress is not a sign of importance. A peaceful mind handles challenges better than an anxious one. Decisions become clearer, reactions become calmer, and setbacks feel manageable. Peace does not remove problems, but it changes how you carry them. And how you carry life determines how long you can walk without collapsing. When peace becomes part of your definition of success, priorities shift naturally. You start choosing sustainability over speed, meaning over noise, and well-being over constant approval. Success then stops feeling like a finish line and starts feeling like a state of being steady, grounded, and deeply satisfying. The mind has limited energy, but distractions are unlimited. Every day, attention is pulled in dozens of directions: notifications, opinions, comparisons, expectations, and fears. Without realizing it, this constant pulling weakens focus. When focus weakens, even simple tasks feel heavy, and progress feels slow. Focus is not just about concentration, it is about choice. It is the ability to decide what deserves your energy and what does not. When you are clear about where you are going, distractions lose their power. But when direction is unclear, everything looks important and everything becomes draining. Many people feel tired not because they are doing too much, but because they are doing too many things that don't matter to them. Their energy leaks into activities driven by pressure rather than purpose. They react instead of acting, respond instead of creating. By the end of the day, they feel exhausted without feeling fulfilled. Distraction often feels harmless: a quick check, a casual comparison, a moment of overthinking. But repeated daily, these small distractions break momentum. They interrupt flow and create mental noise. Progress requires continuity, and continuity requires protection of attention. When you learn to focus, life becomes simpler. You stop chasing every opportunity and start choosing the right ones. You stop trying to please everyone and start honoring your own priorities. This does not reduce possibilities, it sharpens them. Focus also builds confidence. When your energy is aligned in one direction, results begin to show. These results reinforce belief, and belief strengthens discipline. Slowly, effort feels less forced and more natural. You are no longer scattered, you are centered. Distraction feeds on uncertainty. The more unsure you are about your path, the easier it is to get pulled away. But as clarity grows, so does resistance to noise. Opinions begin to matter less. Trends lose their grip. You stop looking sideways and start moving forward steadily. Protecting focus is an act of self-respect. It means valuing your time, your mind, and your potential. It means understanding that not every voice deserves a response, and not every thought deserves attention. When focus becomes a habit, progress stops feeling accidental and starts feeling intentional. There is a subtle difference between growing for yourself and performing for others. Many people work hard, not because they are deeply connected to their goals, but because they want to be seen as successful. They want recognition, validation, and approval. On the surface, this looks like ambition, but underneath, it is often insecurity seeking reassurance. The need to prove something usually comes from doubt. When you are unsure of your own worth, you look outward for confirmation. Compliments feel like relief, and criticism feels like a personal attack. Life then becomes emotionally dependent on how others respond to you. This is exhausting because external validation is unpredictable and temporary. Progress, on the other hand, is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't rush to announce itself. When you are truly focused on growth, you care less about who is watching and more about who you are becoming. The motivation comes from alignment, not applause. Many people delay their own journey because they are busy explaining themselves. They want everyone to understand their choices, their pace, their decisions. But the truth is, not everyone needs to understand you. Some people will never see your vision, and that is okay. Growth does not require universal approval. When you stop trying to prove yourself, a lot of pressure dissolves. You no longer feel the need to compare milestones or justify setbacks. Mistakes become lessons instead of embarrassments. Learning becomes natural instead of stressful. Proving is loud and fragile. Progress is steady and resilient. When challenges arise, a person focused on proving feels threatened, while a person focused on progressing feels curious. One fears failure because it damages image, the other accepts failure because it improves skill. As you shift your attention from image to improvement, patience increases. You stop chasing shortcuts because you value depth. You stop pretending because authenticity feels safer. Your confidence becomes rooted, not reactive. Over time, this mindset builds inner strength. You develop trust in your process and respect for your journey. The need to impress fades, replaced by a quiet commitment to keep moving forward. And that commitment, sustained over time, creates results that no approval could ever replace. The mind has a quiet habit of scanning life for what is missing. It notices absence faster than presence. Even when many things are going right, attention drifts toward the one thing that isn't. Over time, this becomes a pattern. Happiness feels conditional, postponed until everything aligns perfectly. That perfect moment rarely arrives. Gratitude interrupts this pattern gently. It does not deny challenges or pretend that pain doesn't exist. It simply reminds the mind that life is not only what is lacking. When awareness shifts toward what is already working, emotional weight reduces. The heart feels less burdened, even if circumstances remain the same. There is a common misunderstanding that gratitude makes a person passive. But appreciation does not weaken ambition. It stabilizes it. When growth comes from dissatisfaction, it creates anxiety. When growth comes from gratitude, it creates confidence. One pushes out of fear, the other moves forward with trust. Gratitude brings realism. It helps recognize effort, not just outcomes. Progress often goes unnoticed because the mind is fixated on the destination. Gratitude pauses that rush and acknowledges how far one has already come. This acknowledgement builds inner strength and reduces self-doubt. A grateful mind set also changes how setbacks are processed. Instead of seeing failure as proof of inadequacy, it becomes part of learning. Instead of collapsing under disappointment, the mind remains open. Emotional recovery becomes faster because identity is no longer tied only to success. As gratitude deepens, comparison naturally weakens. The focus shifts from measuring life against others to understanding life personally. Contentment grows, not because everything is perfect, but because enough is already present to continue moving forward. Gratitude also softens relationships. Expectations reduce, appreciation increases, small gestures feel meaningful again. People are seen with more understanding and less judgment. This emotional shift reduces conflict and increases connection. Over time, gratitude reshapes the inner atmosphere. Life stops feeling like a constant shortage. The mind feels supported rather than pressured, and from that place of inner abundance, motivation becomes calmer, decisions become clearer, and effort feels lighter. Much of the pressure in life comes from choosing the wrong reference point. When progress is measured against other people, it will always feel insufficient. There will always be someone ahead in some area, and the mind will keep shifting the benchmark. This creates a sense of endless chasing where no achievement ever feels complete. A healthier reference point exists, but it is often ignored. It is personal, quiet, and honest. It lies in who you were before and who you are becoming now. When attention moves there, pressure reduces and responsibility increases. You stop blaming circumstances and start observing growth. Looking at your past self brings clarity. You notice habits that improved, reactions that softened, awareness that deepened. These changes may not be dramatic, but they are real. Growth is rarely loud. It shows up in better choices, calmer responses, and increased self-understanding. Progress becomes sustainable when it is self-referenced. Instead of rushing to match someone else's pace, you focus on consistency. Small improvements compound over time. What feels insignificant today becomes meaningful when repeated daily. This approach builds confidence because it is within your control. Comparing yourself to your past also brings honesty. It highlights areas that still need work without turning them into sources of shame. Mistakes are seen as feedback, not failure. This mindset encourages learning rather than avoidance. When self-improvement replaces competition, effort becomes lighter. You are no longer trying to win, you are trying to grow. This reduces stress and increases focus. Energy that was once spent on comparison gets redirected towards skill, discipline, and awareness. This way of measuring progress also builds self-respect. You stop seeking external validation because improvement itself becomes rewarding. Each step forward reinforces trust in your process. Confidence grows quietly without needing attention. Over time, this internal comparison creates emotional stability. Success no longer depends on others slowing down or failing. It depends on showing up a little better than before. And that consistency, sustained patiently, reshapes life in a way no external comparison ever could. There is a hidden fear that often arises when someone else succeeds. It is the fear that their progress somehow reduces your chances. Without realizing it, the mind treats life like a limited space, where one person's win must come at another's loss. This belief quietly creates tension and insecurity. In reality, success is not a fixed resource. Opportunities are not distributed like slices of a single pie. Life expands in multiple directions at the same time. When one person moves forward, it does not block another from doing the same. But when the mind believes in scarcity, it reacts with comparison, envy, or withdrawal. Allowing others to succeed freely is not weakness, it is emotional strength. It shows confidence in your own path. When you can genuinely appreciate someone else's growth, you free yourself from bitterness. The heart becomes lighter because it is no longer carrying unnecessary resistance. Many people hesitate to celebrate others because they fear being left behind. But resentment does not speed up progress. It only slows it down. Carrying negativity towards someone else's success drains energy that could be used for your own development. When you let people win without internal conflict, something shifts. You stop seeing life as a competition and start seeing it as a shared journey. This perspective reduces pressure. You no longer feel threatened by timelines that differ from yours. Genuine appreciation also strengthens character. It builds humility and grace. These qualities attract support, cooperation, and goodwill. People naturally feel safe and encouraged around someone who does not operate from jealousy or insecurity. As the heart becomes more open, opportunities feel more accessible. You begin to trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by. This trust creates patience, and patience allows for wiser decisions. Letting others rise does not push you down, it stabilizes you, it clears emotional space, and in that space, clarity and confidence grow without force or struggle. Many people spend years chasing a version of success that was handed to them by the world. It is defined by titles, income, status, and visibility. While these things have their place, they are often incomplete. They speak about how life looks from the outside, not how it feels from within. Over time, this gap becomes noticeable. Achievements increase, but fulfillment remains uncertain. Inner peace brings a different understanding. It shifts the focus from accumulation to alignment. When actions match values, the mind settles. There is less internal conflict, less self-justification, and less need to impress. Life feels more honest, even if it appears simpler to others. A peaceful mind does not mean a problem-free life. Challenges still arrive, and effort is still required. The difference lies in how those challenges are carried. When peace is present, pressure does not turn into panic. Setbacks do not turn into self-blame. Stability replaces constant emotional swings. Redefining success around peace changes priorities naturally. Health becomes non-negotiable. Relationships become meaningful rather than transactional. Time becomes something to respect, not something to sacrifice endlessly. Decisions are made with long-term well-being in mind, not just immediate gain. When peace becomes central, there is less urgency to prove worth. Confidence becomes internal rather than performative. You stop measuring life by applause and start measuring it by clarity, consistency, and contentment. Progress continues, but without restlessness. This version of success is quiet. It does not demand attention. It does not need constant validation. Yet it is deeply powerful because it is sustainable. It allows growth without burnout and ambition without anxiety. As peace strengthens, trust in life grows. There is a sense that things unfold as they should, even when they don't unfold quickly. This trust removes the fear of falling behind. It creates space for patience and thoughtful action. When success is rooted in inner peace, life stops feeling like a race to be won. It starts feeling like a journey to be lived with awareness, balance, and steady purpose. There comes a moment when the noise outside begins to fade, not because the world becomes quieter, but because the mind becomes clearer. Comparison loosens its grip, urgency softens, the need to constantly measure, prove, and compete slowly dissolves. Life begins to feel lighter when attention returns inward. Effort becomes more intentional. Progress becomes personal. Peace is no longer postponed for some future version of success. It becomes part of the journey itself. Some days will still feel slow. Some paths will still feel uncertain. But there is strength in knowing that growth is happening, even when it is not visible. There is confidence in walking your own pace without apology. And in that quiet understanding, one truth settles deeply. Not caring who is ahead is not a loss of ambition. It is the beginning of self-respect. From that place, life moves forward, steady, honest, and enough.